Okay, I'll call to order a meeting of the Townsend Board of Zoning Appeals. So the first item is to welcome our new members. So we have two new members that were voted on less than a week ago. So keep in mind, we're all rookies up here. None of us have more than a year's experience. So definitely we're going to work our way through it. So Tommy McAvoy and John McMahon. So welcome on board, and we are glad to have you. Next item is the meeting minutes from the August 8th. That was the last meeting. Now this is interesting already because the two new members cannot vote because you're not on the board. So that leaves two of us. Can we actually?
Yes.
We can?
Yes.
Okay. I need a motion.
I make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor say aye. So I want to take, since we're all pretty new at this, I want to take a minute and just talk about the process. So the process of the BZA is to hear appeals and then approve or not approve, called special exceptions. And for the state, it's called conditional uses. The process, here's the definition from the ordinance. A use which is specifically permitted if the owner can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board that it will meet certain standards, enumerated safeguards, or qualifying conditions. So when we got the appeal that we're going to be reviewed later tonight, I started going through the ordinances. And I found really two sections of the ordinances that apply to the BZA. So the one was in chapter 9, which is really defined, it's called the Board of Zoning Appeals. And in reviewing it, it was very clear that it was written for the building inspector. Because it talks about variances, it talks about actually the board having the ability to put in conditions and various things. The other area is chapter 6, which is provisional government uses districts. It's talking about the zoning areas. And if you read through that, behind every, and almost attached to every zone, there's a comment there about the BZA being able to look at like use and saying yes or no into like use. And we're going to dive into the detail of that, when we address the county steward appeal tonight, because that's where that area, that's the area that the appeal was applied to. So any questions on the process? And in the process, generally, a person has to be denied. So Will, you want to step up on that?
Sure. That was a great introduction. If y'all don't mind, I wanted to sit down so I can flip through my notes here. Can everybody hear me okay? My name is Will Carver, and I am the city attorney for Townsend. I've held this role for just over 20 years. You're right. So the first thing we have to do when a BZA is convened is make sure that the BZA has the authority to be doing what it's asked to do. 8-9042 gives the BZA the authority to hear special exceptions. We have to then look at 8-604 to And as the chairperson pointed out, so 8-604 is B1 Tourist Business District. What you all will have to do tonight is look at the description in 8-604 of what constitutes a tourist business district. And then 8-6041H says that the Board of Zoning Appeals may hear and determine if any use not listed as a permitted use is of the same general character as other permitted uses in the district and is consistent with the intent and purpose of the district. So you're going to be asked to determine whether the proposal for the Tally-Ho Stewart property is consistent with the intent and purpose of the district. And you can read the definition there in 8-604. Now, I think most of you were here for the Planning Commission meeting, and in a Planning Commission, you can have a motion and a second, you can vote, and there doesn't necessarily have to be, nobody has to say why they voted for or against something. State statute, however, changes that analysis for a BZA. In TCA 13-7-205, when you all vote, you must include a statement of the reasons for your actions. So tonight, when somebody makes a motion, either in favor or against, that person in making that motion needs to make a statement of the reasons for the board's actions. I think that statement should reflect what we see in 8-604, that the property does or the proposal does or does not satisfy this introduction in 8-604. And then I think it also, whenever that motion is made, needs to address H, whether or not the proposal is consistent with the intent and the purpose of the district. So because this is an appeal process, you all are acting a little bit more in, say, a judicial role than a legislative role. And because of that, there are those additional requirements. We've got to make sure that we create a clear record as to what the decision is and what the decision is based on. I'm here tonight. I'm happy to help you all as you walk through that. It's important to note that all you all are doing is saying that the proposed use is or is not consistent with 604. You are not saying that this campground dirt could be moved tomorrow. They would still have to go through the site plan process and everything else. This is solely related to whether or not this use should constitute a special exception to 8-604. All the other requirements of Townsend's zoning and codes would still apply, and they would have to abide by the campground ordinance and site plans and all that. Tonight is just to determine whether that use should be approved as a special exception to 8-604.
So if we make a motion to approve, then does each member have to say why they voted, or is it just general?
You could certainly do that. I mean, I think a clean and efficient way would be if there is a motion to approve, for the person who makes that motion to state the basis for which they're making that motion, that they believe it is consistent with the tourist business district, the B1, and that it fits the intent and purpose of the district, and maybe explain why they feel that. I think that could satisfy the statutory requirement in 13-7-205 that I mentioned.
Okay.
Hello. I have a couple of questions. You've really simplified what our job is up here tonight, because my questions are far more perhaps related to what the Board of Commissioners' jobs would be. For instance, I had some questions after just reviewing the history. I have been attending, I probably have a little more, because I've been attending the meetings, some of my questions are probably generated by what I have heard rather than what my role is here. So if you'll bear with me. For instance, you can answer the question and then tell me this has no bearing on what I'm doing. Would we be responsible for holding the applicant accountable to the proposed use? I know part of the reason that I believe, in my interpretation, that the request was denied originally and the reason we are here is, and I went back in my notes, I was also under the impression that if we rezoned land in Townsend to B3 and the person that got the rezoning did not go through with that, it would revert back to its previous zoning. I can't find that in my notes and I can't find it corroborated in the minutes. But my question is then, if the person has if the application is there to go from B1 to B3 for a luxury campground, and then for some reason, because we don't have a site plan, we only have a unilateral agreement, that campground is then not built, they can build whatever they want that is in B3. Is that correct?
Well, I think that we are not here tonight discussing B3.
Okay.
We are discussing whether the proposed use is appropriate as a special exception under B1.
Okay, so my question is really, has nothing to do with what I have to decide tonight.
Bingo.
Okay, most of my questions are going to be that way, but I appreciate,
And
I'm
let-
going to fall back on my newness and tap into your reservoir of knowledge.
But let me add one thing to that as well. If you all approve this as a special exception in B1, it can be a campground in perpetuity. If they sell it or whatever, that special exception of allowing a campground on this parcel in B1 is a permanent decision.
Okay, that does answer that question, thank you. Okay. This is a general question for my future role on the board. The main building code, or the main zoning code, 8-202, is to promote the public health, safety, morals, convenience, order, prosperity, and general welfare. Is that an overriding principle for all of the others if they don't necessarily meet that criteria?
So, promotion of the health, safety, and general welfare is
Convenience.
is something that all municipal boards in Townsend, I don't know that I've seen an ordinance that we've passed ever that omits the phrase, this is for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens and residents of Townsend.
Well, it
That applies
continues.
just, if you don't mind, because it's being recorded, let's make sure we don't talk over each other so that the recording's clear. That would apply to any board in Townsend that's working. They are obligated, I believe that language actually is in our charter, that, the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens and residents of the city of Townsend must be served by any board that's operating under the charter of Townsend, which this one is.
Well, it goes on probably more pertinently to say lessen congestion in the streets, safety from fire, which is on all our minds right now, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, and encourage the most appropriate use of land in the city. Is that an overriding just for future going forward?
Yeah, so if you look at the title there, that's the purpose of the zoning code.
Right.
So that is what zoning in Townsend, these are things that zoning in Townsend is supposed to accomplish.
Okay. I think I have a lot of questions, but I think you have consolidated into a very concise thing for tonight. So I'll probably be tapping into you in the future. Thank you.
And I'm sure everyone here appreciates that. Maybe move that process along a little bit.
Okay, so any questions at this point from the board to the attorney about the process? Okay, now we're going to open it up to public input.
Frank Aker, property at 7511 Old Highway 73. I want to address you all about your task at hand and the conditional use permit that the state of Tennessee has provided for you to use in instances like this. Virtually all of Townsend is B1, as you know, and there are multiple campgrounds located in B1 zone in Townsend. I think that it is in your best interest, as well as the city of Townsend, to not exclude this applicant from being able to do that in the same zone where you already have several other campgrounds. The precedent is already there for you to make that decision, and I would strongly support you doing that because of it's simply not fair for somebody to be in the same zone that another business gets to do that, and they do not. It sort of becomes spot zoning when you deny that, even though technically you can ride the horse that the zone doesn't permit it, but you have been specifically given the power by the state of Tennessee to authorize the special exemption, and there's not a better scenario in anybody's case history than this type of situation. I mean, there's just not one. If they were asking to do something that didn't exist in the B1 zone across the street, it would be really easy to ride the horse of, well, I don't know for sure that that's neighborhood business or tourism business. I mean, campgrounds obviously tourism business, but the fact that you've got so many of them right now in the exact same zone, that should make that a very easy decision for you, and that's what I'm speaking on it about. Don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm trying to help, so y'all have a good
Okay,
day.
thank you. Any other public input?
Chairman, I'm Tom Talley, part owner of the seller of the property that is involved here. And frankly, I did not even know this meeting was ongoing tonight until I got on the internet and found out that it had been listed as going on the 6th day of January, 3 days ago, which I had been reading the one ads in the paper to try to determine when the BZA was going to meet. And I just now found out, not 15 minutes ago, I jumped in my truck and I ran as fast as I could. And excuse me, but my tachycardia is making my heart go like crazy. I'm sorry. I don't know if Mr. Carver has reviewed with you the special act under 13.7.201 paragraph C of the Tennessee Code. Have you gone over that with them?
We have not.
You have not. My next day right, I'm sorry. And this is what paragraph C states. In any county having a population of not less than 85,800 or greater than 86,100, according to the 1990 census or any subsequent federal census, any municipality may, by ordinance or amendment adopted by 2/3 of the vote of the legislative body, rezone properties conditionally or based upon contract where the agreed conditions are designed to ameliorate injuries created by a rezoning to surrounding properties. what this means to me is that the attempt to rezone, by the way, the numbers I quoted are Blount County. Blount County, Tennessee. You can go to your 1990 census and read those figures if you would like, or you can look up this on the internet, Tennessee Code Annotated. Excuse me, and it's right there. Give me just a minute if you would, please. Could someone get me a drink of water, please? I'm sorry, but this whole thing is just. I don't know what that is, a special condition of use, but I wanted these people to be aware. Michael, hold on a minute. Would you mind reading this paragraph?
Tennessee Code Title 13, Public Planning and Housing, 13-7-208. B1, in the event that a zoning change occurs in any land area where such land area was not previously covered by any zoning restrictions of any governmental agency of this state or its political subdivisions, or which such land area is covered by zoning restrictions of a governmental agency of this state or its political subdivisions. Did I just jump in the same sentence? Okay, I did. Let me start over. Sorry. In the event that a zoning change occurs in any land area which such land area was not previously covered by any zoning restrictions of any governmental agency of this state or its political subdivisions, or where such land area is covered by zoning restrictions of a governmental agency of this state or its political subdivisions, and such zoning restrictions differ from zoning restrictions imposed after the zoning change, then any industrial, commercial, or business establishment in operation permitted to operate under zoning regulations or exceptions thereto prior to the zoning change shall be allowed to continue in operation and be permitted, provided that no change in the use of the land is undertaken by such industry or business. Will?
So, that does not relate to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Zoning Appeals power is created in 13-7-205. That relates maybe to a planning commission or a chief legislative body, which is separate from what this group has the authority to do tonight.
And just to reiterate, it is a special use exception that's been applied for rather than a rezoning variance or.
That's right. It's a special exception to the current ordinance.
So in this regard, the parcel will remain as a B1 designation. However, the use of a campground may be permitted in that B1 designation. That's the use that Brett is looking for this evening.
Well, kind of have all has me confused, but the whole topic of these three and campgrounds wound up in the B3 district. It really befuddled me. I'm going to tell you why. In tourism business, and I'm going to be speaking in generalities here. I don't know what your policies, your procedures are, your step-by-step issues are as you go through these processes. The whole of the upper end of Townsend is basically a tourism area. You can follow the field of tourism from the time Mary and Joseph had to stay in the stable. Makes you wonder what Bethlehem's zoning and planning was back then almost, because campgrounds and motels and hotels and hospitals. They are all things that relate to tourism and attending to the transient public. And I see very little difference between whether people stay in a motel or whether they stay in a camper. To me, it's all the same. We're splitting hairs when we start trying to isolate uses into various segments like hotels, motels, campgrounds, or whatever. And I'm going to give you a prime example. In our own business, when my mom and dad built 8 units back in 1952, almost every week we would have a family staying there, if not 3 or 4 families in those 8 little units. Over time, this has changed significantly, very significantly. Families no longer come and stay in hotel units. They want a cabin on the river, they want a cabin up on the mountain, or they want to drag their own camper along. And I think that the tourism business will evolve in the future. It has evolved in the past, and it will continue to evolve. I often wonder what's going to happen when we get these drones that people can fly into Tuckabitchy Cove and land somewhere and drop down. Seriously, I live in West Miller's Cove. About every week, there's a helicopter comes over and drops someone at Blackberry Farm. Things are going to change. They have changed in the past. From an economy standpoint of the Cove, I don't think that you can split out hotels, motels, and put them in a particular category and move campgrounds off in a different category. It's just untenable from a business perspective. Those are about all of the thoughts that I have for right now. But in my opinion, authorizing, however your procedures or whatever you're doing here, authorizing the campground for that 5 acres, to me, is perfectly logical, it is perfectly legitimate, and it fits perfectly within the law, this law for expanding an existing business, staying B1 or moving to B3, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it, simply allowing tourism to continue on that parcel of property as it has in the past, and as I see it, as it should in the future. That's my comments. I'm sorry for being late and being illy prepared. I didn't realize this meeting was even going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, any more public input? Come to the mic, please.
The decision tonight is that to permit these people to have a campground on the 5-acre tract adjacent to the Tally Ho. Is that what this is about?
Correct.
Okay. My name is Don Hedrick, and I'll not repeat myself much. You've heard what I've said about this before. As Mr. Talley said, that is a tourist area. And I think that us as a community, and tourism is the backbone of this community. It's the backbone of the funds that operate this community. Okay, now, Tom was right. The tourist industry changes. People want to sleep in their own bed. I have a motel. I found that out. That's the reason they're coming and bringing the bed with them. Now, what happens if you don't meet and change with the times? Are you going to let these motels fall on hard times, dilapidate. That could happen as the people demand the campers. I mean, it's a no-brainer here. There's no reason to not accept that use when you can stand on the parcel and look at no less than three campgrounds, maybe 4, I think. And let's not be selfish. As I heard one lady say, she wanted to look at the field. My gosh, she lived in a camper 6 months out of the year. Let's go ahead and do the right thing. Thank you.
Any more public input? Okay, so now we are going to address the appeal itself. First thing I'm going to do is go over a quick history in case members of the board were not present at the meetings that were pertaining to this appeal. So I sent this out a couple weeks ago. So on October the 10th, the Planning Commission, Mr. Stewart addressed the Planning Commission with an application to a portion of the Tally Ho Inn, property rezoned from B1 to B3 to develop an upscale RV park and incorporate it into the operations of the main Tally Ho Inn. A motion was made to recommend the rezoning petition to the Board of Commissioners. The motion passed by 5 yea votes. Then on October 15th, the Board of Commissioners meeting addressed ordinance 341-24-1P to rezone the parcel from B1 to B3 and was passed with 3 yeas and 1 no. On November 19th, the Board of Commissioners meeting held a public hearing on ordinance 341-24-1P on the rezoning of the parcel from B1 to B3. The request failed on 2 yea and 2 no votes. The discussion was by the Board of Commissioners was there was a potential risk in B3. That someone, if they rezone a parcel in B3, then that person could sell it to another person, and that would open them up to not just do a campground, that could do anything that is listed in B3, which is a box store or whatever. So, from my point of view, is what has happened is so in essence, that is the act that opened the door for the appeal. That was a denial. Okay, that was a requirement before the appeal could be submitted. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one question, and we discussed this early on, but I'd like to bring this to attention again. And this may be directed at the city attorney, once this is voted on or for, if it's voted for and it conditional uses this property as a campground, if that property is sale then goes through, that property is cut out by the new owner and sold, it's still B1 and it still has a conditional use of a campground.
Yes, it's B1. Let's make sure we use the term special exceptions,
Special-
because that's what our code allows. I want to make sure that.
So this property, if it goes that way, will always have that attached to it.
That is correct.
Does that become deeded that way?
I
Or
guess
just-
it'll be part of our zoning map.
With our
That
zoning.
way, a campground would be a special exception there would be a special exception that allows a campground on this B1 parcel.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's my
Okay, any other questions on this?
Yes, I have another question for the attorney, which I think you already answered. I just want clarification. Because the original request was a rezoning from B1 to B3, should the request for the special exemption doesn't go to the Board of Commissioners before it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals? Since he's in essence, they're asking for something different now. They're asking for it to remain B1 with a special exemption. And that's our job, or does it never go back to the Board of Commissioners first?
No, this would not go back to the Board of Commissioners. They have appealed an adverse decision that prevented them from operating a campground on that parcel. And so this is the avenue that they have elected to appeal to this board, seeking a special exception to allow them to have a campground, but the parcel remain B1.
Okay. Any questions on the history?
This may be a little bit, in the special use, the special exception, can you not stipulate parameters of the use, including even if commissioners are uncomfortable, if you say it's permitted to have a campground developed on it within the next 5 years, but if it's not developed in 5 years, it just, the exception runs out? I mean, does it have to last in perpetuity?
So here's what this BZA has authority to do. To hear and decide special exceptions to the ordinance, okay? When we flip, that's in 8-904. When we flip to 8-604, that's where we have the language that may hear and determine if any use not listed as a permitted use is of the same general character and so on. Michael, what I think you're referencing is what we see sometimes with variances.
Okay.
And a lot of times when there is a variance request, these folks may say that, you know, a lot can be a narrower width than what the code allows and that sort
They
of
can put
thing.
conditions on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I do not see anything in our zoning ordinance that would allow that kind of conditions that we're talking about, the time frame or that sort of thing. They are determining whether or not a campground should be a special exception in B1, and that's the extent of it, with the caveat that I mentioned initially, that they were just approving that as a use. All other provisions of the code that would apply to a campground would apply before the campground could have an approved site plan, construction could begin.
Thank you.
I asked the same question through an email with the other conditions. Okay, any other questions about the history? So you all got a copy of the application. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. Yes.
Sir, I think we're trying to clarify if the request is for a campground or an RV park. If you give us just a minute, we're going to look at the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Aren't they the same? Following the same regulation.
It says RV park / campground.
It does
It
say.
says RV park / campground.
Okay, so it is the same.
That's what the applicant, that's what the
That's what the
appeal
application
is.
says.
Okay.
And I think 8311 says is a ordinance for recreational use vehicles, parks, and camping. So I think they're in sync.
And the definition of those two things reference the same ordinance, so I think that's accurate.
Okay. So it could be a RV park or campground. Okay, thank you.
Or it could be a combination of both.
Okay, I'm not going to read the appeal. Just want to note on the action requested from the BZA, approval of our recreational park / campground is approved future in use in addition to all current B1 uses. They're applying for us to issue a special exception for them to build a campground, RV park campground, in a B1 zone. The rest of it pretty much is what we've already discussed. The history, the fact that the Board of Commissioners denied or failed to with it. Any questions on the appeal? Okay, at this time, we need a motion to continue the discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Is that a motion to approve the appeal?
Make a motion to approve the appeal.
Got a second? So now that the city attorney has described our role differently than the Board of Commissioners and the planning, I'd like to hear input from each of the board members on their thoughts, yea or nay. So, who wants to start
Are you going to call for a vote?
after the discussion?
We have discussed already.
So,
You want an explanation of our vote?
By statute, with the motion, we need to state as a BZA the basis for that motion. So if the motion
Oh, the
is
basis
to
for the
approve this
motion.
special exception, we need to state the factual basis why you all feel like under 8-604, a campground would be appropriate.
and that's appropriate if I ask each member?
Certainly.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. You want to know my opinion?
That's a gist of it.
I feel that this falls into exactly what they're requesting. I would, if I was to go to a vote on this, I would vote for this appeal to become a special exception for RV campground, based on it is in other campground areas, it is in that gateway side of town, it fits the land use, I believe, for its intent. And it also brings some options for the owners to have people that want to sleep in their own beds as well as people that don't. And it also provides a tax basis for the city of Townsend.
Tommy?
I really thought when I came here tonight, I was going to be deciding whether he could rezone to B3 instead of B1. And so in doing my research on that, I came to the conclusion that if it was already B1 and there's already campgrounds there, he should be allowed to have a campground in B1. So that was already a conclusion.
Okay, John,
So it,
use of language.
it fits that area of town. There's, I think, 7 campgrounds up there now, so I can't see any reason whatsoever why they should not be allowed to do that.
Okay, my opinion, if Mr. Stewart had applied a year earlier, he would be applying in the B1. Right now, every campground in the city is B1. So I think it's like use, and I think it fits the zone. So I'm going to do a clerical thing, and this is on your email, you said you wanted to make it very clear. So I have a question for Mr. Stewart, and this is for the meeting minutes only. You are aware that if we approve this appeal, that it does not relieve you from any of the other city ordinances, such as B811, RV parks and campgrounds. You're still going to need a site plan, you're still going to need a drainage plan, you're going to need all that. You need to follow all of Tennessee laws. All we're allowing you to do is allow you to proceed with the process in B1. You understand that?
Yes, we do. We've studied those ordinances from day one and are prepared to start and work with the architects and engineers. And hopefully we'll present you with the planning commission with a complete site plan that meets all the requirements.
Okay, thank you. So we're ready for others.
If I may pose a question
Sure.
to you all, I think it would be good for the record, for you all to confirm your belief that a campground is of the same general character as other permitted uses in the district and is consistent with the intent and purpose of the district. I think I heard that from you all in your various answers, but that's what you are tasked to do as the BZA, is to confirm that a campground is of the same general character as other permitted uses in the district and is consistent with the intent and purpose of the district.
I agree with what you just said.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're ready for a vote. So, all in favor of approving the appeal from Mr. Stewart to allow him to build a campground on the 5.2 acres between the Tally-Ho Inn and the Heritage Center, while that piece of property is still zone B1, not requiring him to rezone to B3. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass. Okay, so, in this review of the BZA ordinances, I found that it was confusing. You looked at chapter 9, and it talked about the building inspector. It talked about conditions, and it talked about, then you go to chapter 6, and it has special phrases, and they're even different on different zones. So I would like this board to request to the Board of Commissioners that they review the BZA ordinances to make them consistent. What I'd like to see is chapter 9 updated so that's not just for the building inspector, but it's inclusive of all the areas, Board of Commissioners and Planning Commission. So do I hear a motion to make that recommendation?
For a Chapter 9 review.
A request for a chapter 9 review?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Somebody's pointing over here.
Oh, no, I'm making notes.
Oh, you're making
Last time I said something, like,
So-
hiccup it out.
So my question would be, this request goes, does it go through the planning, just goes right to the Board of Commissioners?
We're gonna make it right to the Board of Commissioners.
Makes it right to the Board of
They need to take this planning, they can take our planning. We would like to initiate to make these clear.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? All in favor of making a request to the Board of Commissioners, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So another agenda item is, I would like to see this board make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and this relates to the B3 conversations. I just think it's very clear that it's going to, in the future, or the CPAC is going to come back with a plan, and it's a logical step that we're going to need to review ordinances. I would like this board to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners that they hold a public educational workshop for the public on exactly how Tennessee's municipal ordinances are written and developed to be effective.
Is that a workshop or is that an educational opportunity?
It could be either one, whatever they want to phrase it. Typically, we describe them as workshops. But it could be an educational session.
So they're learning how they're written, they're not helping to write them at this point?
It's just a conversation. I just think that there's so much discussion in our Townsend meetings. And just that everybody, and even if we should attend, everybody should attend the Board of Commissioners plan on exactly how to write correct and effective ordinances.
I do believe, if I may, as representative of the CPAC committee, chairman of the CPAC committee, we have been discussing with our city planner and the mayor processes as these new ordinances are either changed, modernized, et cetera, et cetera. I think, at least on our end, I do believe we have a plan to bring those into not just one or two, but I think it's several workshops for public knowledge. So this can be part of that, or at least like from the big book, that's kind of what we had planned.
If you feel the recommendation's not needed, that's fine.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, is this along those lines,
Yeah.
or is it the same?
But maybe the recommendation would be that the Board of Commissioners and the CPAC committee collaborate on educating the public on correct ordinances.
I think that's the plan.
Yeah, as part of the CPAC process, we are going to be discussing things like what have been discussed in terms of making sure that we have disciplined decision structures for what we want for our city. And also, like what Mr. Talley said, is that we should push back from these strict definitions that are prone to not provide you with the intent of what Townsend is supposed to be. So I have brought this up a number of times where I've said that you shouldn't fixate on what is a hotel, what is a this, what is that. We should rather think of it to some extent on the fact that it's hospitality and how does it be in keeping with the intent of what Townsend wants to be as a tourism, hospitality, enclave, resource to its visitors and its patrons. So that sort of thing. So those sort of discussions will be happening with the workshop that we plan for the commissioners, for the planning, for the city commissioners, planning commissioners, the BZA, and the general public as well. So,
Okay, then this recommendation is not required. I'm fine with that. Okay, next item on the agenda is election.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate you as on
I didn't hear complete. I didn't get the complete item. Okay. Chairperson. Any motion for a chairperson?
Can I make a nomination?
Yes, you can.
I'd like to nominate Del Brown.
Okay.
I second that.
Any other nominations? All in favor of Del Brown being the chairman of the BZA, say yay.
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 Yay. Opposed? Okay. Vice chairperson.
I'd like to nominate David Hope.
I'll second the motion for Dave Hope. Any other nominations for vice chair? All in favor of Dave Hope being the vice chair of the BZA, say yay.
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 Opposed?
On your leave.
Secretary. Any nominations for secretary of the BZA?
I nominate Keith Shepherd.
Oh, you're gonna fit right in.
I like that.
I watched what happened to Joanne, I'm not playing.
Okay, are we serious or are we just having fun?
No, I'm serious.
You serious?
I'm serious.
Any other, you got a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? All in favor of Keith Shepherd being the secretary, say yea.
Okay?
Yea. Opposed? Any other business from the BZA? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody, for coming out.